My life has just begun to take shape. I studied at the academy and received a governor's scholarship for academic excellence. There were also opportunities to earn extra money, and I could afford to live in a chic, by my standards, apartment. Academy students, as a rule, are wealthy guys, but among them I felt on an equal footing and even had popularity. They were surprised that my mother was an ordinary physical education teacher, and my father was a locksmith shop master. You have achieved everything thanks to your extraordinary abilities. It's cool, they told me. I was proud of myself. I had plans for the future. It seemed that everything was on my shoulder, shouldn't touch the past. While arranging my wardrobe, I found an old school backpack. Within, I arrived in a new city a year and a half ago, but I never completely disassembled it. There were some clothes, some expired energy bars, a phone charger, and a bag filled with rice. I immediately remembered what was in it. My old cell phone that I used at school got wet. I was advised to dry it for several days in this way, but soon I got a new phone, and this one remained at the bottom of the backpack. Even came with me to another city. I was wondering if it works. There are probably a lot of old photos and videos left. I took the smartphone out of the package, unwound the wire and plugged the adapter into a power outlet. An animation of the battery charge appeared on the screen. After waiting half an hour, I turned on the phone. Here I am at sports competitions with a medal around my neck, and here we are with classmates. Well, I have a sweater and a hairstyle. It was both funny and embarrassing to watch. Good thing I didn't post it online. I winced at the notification. A text message came to my old phone. Don't turn around at 9:00 p.m. or you'll see your worst nightmare. The sender's number was not determined, and the strangest thing is the date. The message was sent to me the year before last, but it only came when I turned on the phone. I took a picture of the screen and sent it to Deborah, a girl with whom we have been talking a lot lately. He said that he found an old phone, and then such horror comes, it looks like a letter of happiness. I used to get these from my friends when I was a kid. If you don't send a message to 10 people in 10 minutes, your mom will die. It seems trite, but I would also be scared if this came to my old mobile phone, written by Deborah. On the contrary, I liked it. I put the phone down and thought about whether I should walk around the center. I like to walk alone at fairs in the light of garlands, smile at strangers I met, watch which of them smiled back and which shyly hide their eyes. It didn't mean anything, just a game. I was standing at the closet, choosing what to wear for a walk, and felt something approaching from behind. It seemed that it was about to touch me. I felt it with my back and the back of my head. I wanted to turn around, but I suppressed the urge, instantly remembering the message on the old phone. What time is it? Keeping my position, I looked down at the clock, 8:09, exactly. Now I just got more scared. No sound, no breath, just an irrational feeling. There is something behind. I stood and looked in the closet. I was shivering, as if from cold. Several minutes passed like that. How long can you turn around? Everything seems to be. The hairs on the skin stopped sending signals. I turned around slowly. There was nothing behind, and made bed in the morning, a lumpy blanket, a towel on the floor left after a shower. I breathed a sigh of relief, realizing that it was just a false sense of danger, possibly inspired by a recent text message. But how did the brain guess the time to the minute? Or is it a coincidence? I didn't think about it for too long. What happened began to seem ridiculous, and the last story. How easy it is to be afraid of your own shadow. Then the same thing happened to me. My head was full of nightmares. I didn't think about anything except what needs to be completed and handed over on time. It was a busy evening at work. I went to the kitchen to eat a couple of sandwiches, returned to the room. and suddenly something grew behind me. It felt right to turn around, make sure there was nothing there, but I could not. The horror that seized me fettered my arms and legs. The clock on the poppy screen showed the same time, 8:09. I suddenly smelled dampness and chlorine. This smells like my worst nightmare. There was something behind. It felt like it was about to touch his neck. And then everything disappeared. Just 3 minutes later, there is no one in the apartment. But again, self-hypnosis. And this time it's even scarier. After classes, friends asked what plans for the evening and suggested going to karaoke. I don't like and can't sing, but I agreed. We haven't gone anywhere together for a long time. It was about 8 in the evening, and I knew that the fateful time would soon come. The guys and girls were talking and laughing. Deborah, as always, did not take her eyes off me. Worried and asked why I was so tense, they tried to hand me a microphone, persuaded me to do something, but I refused. No songs. Deborah covered me, took the microphone, and said it was her turn. It was already 15 past 8 on the clock, being in a noisy company. I missed a terrible moment and felt nothing. No tremors in the back, no smells, nothing. I was convinced again that there was nothing to worry about. That old phone, although it worked, was no good for anything. The touchpad peeled off and the battery drained quickly. I handed it in for processing. I didn't even keep the old photos as a keepsake. On the contrary, I wanted to forget about everything. If only you could just take and give up what you don't like, scrap your invisible fears. And again it happened to me. Anxiety flared up in me like a spasm. I wrote term paper, feeling something behind me. I jumped. Hands gripped the tabletop on their own. There was no need to look at the clock, and without that it was clear what time and minute it was. The dry air smelled of dampness and chlorine. I did not turn around, but only waited for the obsession to pass. Something touched the back of my head like cold fingertips. What is this? I could not stand it and turned around, but everything disappeared. Behind me was only a wall with my old framed diplomas. I touched the back of my head. It was wet, but not from sweat. Droplets hung at the ends of her hair. The liquid had a slight odor of chlorine, familiar to the point of nausea. This happened when I was alone, so the logical answer, unfortunately, was to spend evenings out or invite someone to my place. I knew who would gladly agree to come to me, Deborah. I was interested in her, and she herself hinted more than once that she wanted to visit me. I had no plans for this girl. I wanted our relationship to always remain at the level of sweet flirtations. Deborah saw me as a flawless, smart, interesting guy. I used to want her to know only one side of me, but now I needed her. We took a walk after class, and then I offered to come to my place. It seemed that Alice was just waiting for an invitation. It was really interesting with her. I forgot about the time we talked and didn't feel any tension. The girl laughed at every joke, sometimes as if accidentally touching my hands. This can be regarded as a sign of deep sympathy. I asked, "Are you hungry?" "Yes, I would like water or green tea, if you have it," Alice answered. I asked to wait a minute and went to the kitchen, and she suddenly threw me a compliment. "You have such broad shoulders. Sports is over," I said from the kitchen. "And what did you do?" the girl asked. I was already returning to the room and felt, even heard, something coming for me. Those squishy steps. "Deborah, what time is it?" I shouted so as not to hear them. 8:09. "And what?" The girl turned pale when she saw me on the threshold of the room. The smile faded from her face as she looked over my shoulder. I stood with smoking mugs, and Alice looked at me, then behind me. This silent scene lasted a couple of minutes. Then I asked, "What are you looking at?" "Not at all," the girl replied. "It seemed to me that you were not alone. I dreamed of something." I looked back into the empty corridor. We sat and chatted for a while longer, and then Alice complained of being tired and said that it was time for her to go home. I didn't even finish my tea. I was sure something frightened her. She saw something. I wanted to find out what. Deborah avoided talking to me and avoided answering. The girl, without explaining anything, changed her attitude towards me. I tormented her with questions, and she blurted out irritably, "I don't know what I saw, but it was scary and disgusting. You can no longer follow me, please." A curse. I was dumped by my main admirer. Don't turn around or you'll see your worst nightmare. What will happen if I see? I will die. Is it so terrible that your heart can't take it? I lay in the bathroom and knew that the minute was approaching when I would shake again. It has always been equally scary. That message said don't look back. But what if you look in the reflection? In the steamed bathroom, the mirror was completely fogged up. I climbed out of the water, dried myself with a towel, and looked at my watch for another 3 minutes. My reflection seemed to be a blur. I was waiting. Here it is right next to it, not false impulses at all. My worst nightmare had outlines. I saw in the hazy reflection something round over my shoulder, face. I reached for the mirror, ran it across the glass, and slippery hands grabbed my shoulders. I was turned to the bath. My feet slipped easily on the wet floor. A hand tugged at her hair. I bent over and my head was underwater. Something pressed into the back of his head, did not allow him to emerge and breathe. I struggled to dodge, rested against the side of the bath, and with each jerk I lost strength. It was killing me. Water entered the lungs. I fought some more and would have passed out. I was saved by the fact that the time of obsession was over. I couldn't get up. I was shaking from coughing and spitting water, puffy gray face, rolled eyes. This is what was in the mirror a moment before I was knocked over into the bath. That's what happens if you see him. More than a convincing warning, the teachers considered me a capable student. I was a prominent figure for them. Therefore, many of them immediately drew attention to my difficulties with studies. I became nervous and inattentive. "You need help," my handler said. "I have a good friend who practices hypnotherapy. Call her and tell her it's from me." Most problems are only in our heads, I thought. He's right. It is unlikely that psychologists know how to deal with curses, but they can correct morale. And this is just what I need. First, I went for a consultation. I liked the atmosphere in the office. A tall, stately woman offered to sit on the sofa, which was convenient for me, while she herself sat in an armchair opposite. Imagine that we are two people just talking. She seemed to know all the answers. During the first conversation, we found out that I have a phobia and we need to find the root of the problem. So, I agreed to hypnotherapy and came back 2 days later. There is no need to be afraid. The specialist said, "This is not magic. I will not swing the pendulum in front of your eyes. You just lie down, relax and listen to my voice." There is nothing difficult about entering a hypnotic trance. This state accompanies us throughout our lives. When we wake up and fall asleep, when we dream or do something automatically, all our life we either fall into a trance or get out of it and do not even notice it. Close your eyes and describe the images that you see. We talk not about what happened to me recently, but about the distant past, what gnaws at me. What is my worst nightmare? Is there something that I don't even want to think about, remember, and even more so speak out loud? Yes, there were ugly pages in the history of my life. I didn't tell anyone about it. During my high school years, I was good at sports, doing speed swimming, and I had an opponent, Richard Bowman. Even his name sounded sporty and fit well with the solemn announcements of the winners. We were equal in results, but what I achieved with work and many hours of training, he did easily. As if jokingly, Richard was not just a good athlete, he was gifted. I lingered after training in the pool, and he stayed to support me, although he was the reason for my persistence. The question was who would represent our city in the competition, him or me. Once I spent an extra 2 hours in the pool. Arthur was with me all this time and did not get tired at all. When I was going home, he asked if I had ever jumped into the pool from the highest diving board. I knew that it was impossible to do this without special training because we didn't do jumps, but swam for speed. But I told him to try. Maybe he has a predisposition to this too. It has already passed for 8 in the evening. There was no strength left to train. Coming out of the pool, I heard a splash. Richard jumped from the tower. I turned my head and saw out of the corner of my eye that the guy was lying face down on the water, being rocked by the waves. He often made fun of me, and I thought, yeah, fuck you, Bowman. So I believed. I left. Richard was left alone. The next day it turned out that my opponent had died. Having jumped from the tower, he was injured by a diver, injured his neck and choked. Nobody asked me about anything. How could anyone know that I was there at that hour? I did not stop Richard when he climbed the tower and did not believe that trouble had happened to him. I just didn't do anything. You wanted him to jump to support his idea, despite the danger, said the specialist. And when he left, did you think that you would be lucky if something happened to your rival? Did you really want to go to those competitions? What? No, I didn't force him to do it. Clear. He himself decided so. Yes, you know that due to a diver's injury in more than half of the cases, people die or become severely disabled. I just lost my temper, even if I called for help. Do you think he would want to spend the rest of his life with a paralyzed body? You don't dare to judge me. It's not my fault. She looked at me silently, questioningly and coldly. I tore my coat off the hanger and left. I don't need this kind of help. I came home, took off my shoes and felt him behind my back. I hope to experience this minute with a psychologist in a state of hypnotic trance. But I came home earlier, 20:09, the time I left. Water was spreading under my feet. My socks were wet. The smell was like in a swimming pool. Richard, is that you? I turned around and saw a bloated, drowned man. He held out his hands to me, wrinkled like rubber gloves. He didn't follow me into the room. He didn't kill me, and he didn't intend to. I sat on the floor holding my heart and looking at my old diplomas. He will appear every evening for the rest of my life. This is my worst nightmare.